Have you ever wondered what it'd be like if you were a time traveler sent back in time with a squad of mechs to save the world from an evil alien bug race that had taken over Earth in your timeline? Well, now you can, with Into the Breach, made by the same guys who made FTL, which had caused PTSD for the majority of their customer base. They have a pause function. Yeah, I used that pause function. It wasn't enough. Into the Breach is a turn-based strategy game that literally shows you what will happen next. So no more of that, it just did a crit on my guy. I was in full cover. You know, bullshit that XCOM has. Although it doesn't mean you don't have to pay attention, which I found out the hard way. The story is a very simple one, which is kind of a trend with strategy games. You are good guy. You go beat up bad guy. World is saved. Or some variant of that. But for all you who really want to know the story, you are a time traveler. He or she is sent back through time with 3 mechs of your choice to save up to 4 continents from being destroyed by the Vec, which is the alien bug race. That is literally all the story is. It's not exactly what you'd call engaging or deep. Into the Breach's strength is the gameplay, much like every other strategy game. Except for Warcraft 3, that actually had a very good story. It plays like any other turn-based strategy game. You take a turn moving your unit and attacking, the enemy takes a turn doing the same. Actually sounds kind of boring, come to think of it. Why do we play it? Oh, I know why. Because it's a very challenging game. Should you nudge the enemy if you can't kill it before it gets a hit off on either one of your mechs or buildings you're supposed to defend? It challenges you to use your brain, and makes you think which order you should attack with what abilities. A lot of thought is needed if you want to finish the game with total dominance. Sure, you can sacrifice some of the buildings if your power grid is maxed out, but where's the fun in that? That's playing it safe. It encourages you to do better by having bonus objective rewards and also achievements that give a currency to unlock more mech squads. Replayability is not an issue with Into the Breach. I'm not one for completing achievements, but I still did them. Partially because it forced me to do it in order to try out other squads, but also because some of them seem to be fun. Like, actually fun. The lightning mech has a lightning whip that you can use, and it chains. So it chains up to whatever it can touch, so that's buildings, enemies, and also allies. And it's so satisfying just killing everything with one attack. Beautiful. Although I wouldn't recommend doing it straight away, the game does punish you pretty hard if you let too many Vex spawn. There are upgrades you can get for your mechs, extra damage, health, movement, bonus abilities, etc, you know, usual stuff. You can also buy new abilities altogether with the reputation you earn at the end of completing an island. But some abilities are locked to specific classes of mechs: Prime, Brute, Science, and Ranged. I didn't run into anything game-breaking, but there were moments where it seemed quite unfair, such as when you set up your mechs at the start. I first thought it was unfair, but realized I was just being an idiot. You can check the Vec movements before you deploy your mech so you know how to position properly, but when you don't do that, you start to think, wow, it's cheating, or this is really unfair, or this is bullshit. But it turns out to be, you're the problem, which I like. I like it when the game basically tells me I'm a fucking idiot and forces me to improve. I wish more games did that. Overall, I absolutely loved Into the Breach. It's turn-based, has mechs, and makes you feel good for going beyond by doing both achievements and bonus objectives and missions. There is a reward at the end if you complete all the achievements that unlocks you a secret squad, which is super cool. Plus, you know, you can rename all the mechs, as well as the pilots. I renamed all of them after the Pacific Rim characters. I'm not exactly the most creative person when it comes to naming. So the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit is a little hard for me to talk about, mainly because it is 90% story and 10% gameplay. Still more gameplay than your average David Cage game, but for those who are unfamiliar with what this game is, it's what I like to call a third-person, choose-your-own-adventure game set in the Life is Strange universe. Before I go any further, I have to point out that the rest of the review will just be a spoiler, as this is all a story. This entire game is a story. You play a new character called Christopher Eriksen, with the alter ego of Captain Spirit. His father is an alcoholic and his mother is nowhere to be seen. It's hinted at early on that Christopher's mother left, but you quickly unravel that the situation him and his father are in is due to Emily dying in a car accident without the people responsible being found. Because the game isn't that long, between 1 and 2 hours at most, it's hard for me to say much about the game, due to there not being much really. But you get into the mindset of someone who's still grieving and sad deep down because the only person he has left is slowly destroying themselves. Over the course of the game, Chris keeps mentioning his arch-nemesis Mantroid. You don't think much of it at first, but if you complete all the bonus objectives in the game, you find out that Mantroid is a combination of the street names where his mother died, which symbolizes that Chris hasn't completely moved on. but in a more subtle way, while his father is an alcoholic and more aggressive towards people, showing that he is still angry. Anyway, seeing as this is being sold as a game, I might as well mention something about its gameplay. It's the same as the other Life is Strange games, but with each Life is Strange comes a new gimmick. Before the Storm gave us intimidation choices, the original allowed us to rewind time. This one allows us to use imagination, which is basically Chris doing an action as a superhero rather than how someone would normally do an action. For example, he has the option of washing the dishes or mega washing them. I didn't really have any issues. Again, it's not a long game and free, but I did notice in certain locations the frame rate went down and it's very noticeable. Other than that, it ran just fine. The only other issue I had with it was some of the puzzles just did not make any sense. Like, why does his dad's phone use a password that Chris would use instead? Also, I have never seen a phone use more than 6 characters. Overall, I enjoyed it for what it was. I knew it was going to be a story-driven game. It was shorter than I expected it to be, but it's a free game. And it's a nice way to introduce a new character in the Life is Strange universe, who apparently will return in Life is Strange 2. Sadly, there is no other information about that, but all in all, I really enjoyed the game.